That's pretty cool. Well, welcome to the podcast.
My name is Jamie Colleen Miller. Most people know me as Jamie Colleen, or in the fight world, Bad Mama. And yeah, I'm a former MMA fighter.
Jamie. Just like that lightning flash.
Hey everyone, my name is Jamie.
So every time you're so inspirational. And so I just was moved to tears watching that. And it's just so close to home for me. I've experienced a lot of domestic violence and abuse and trauma throughout my life. That's why I became a trauma therapist, because I know it's something that you can overcome. But even more so, it helps you to evolve, to overcome adversity. Part of our lives to experience adversity, but women, and then people of color as well, we have a whole different set of adversity to overcome.
On her way to the UFC, and they basically just like brought me in to lose. And and you know what? I kind of liked that and used that as motivation. And to me, I felt like I was my own secret weapon. Like it felt like, haha, I'm going to show you. Like, because I knew exactly what I was capable of, and I knew why I was there. And I knocked her out in the fourth, took the belt home, and yeah, it was pretty cool. It was exciting. So
important lesson that I learned and all of that is I can't just let my guard down because I want people to be a certain way. Like I can't just see the good in everybody and not see the truth. I have to see all of it. And that's how I've gotten into abusive relationships and abusive friendships, because I want to see the best in people. But that's a disservice to everybody involved.
It totally, person's like, yeah, you can be a good person, like to the right people. Like you don't have to like give so much of yourself in the beginning. Like give it time and make sure that they're worthy of that part of you. So that's something that I'm still working on too, because I find myself, and it's a daily, like you really have to be attuned to yourself and like really self-aware to notice that you're doing it, because I feel like it's such like a natural thing that we do, right? So when something feels normal and natural, like you're not going to automatically be like, oh, well, this is wrong. It's been 10 years since I escaped. I've been an advocate now for 8 years, 8 years. And I feel like I'm just getting started.
Hi, everybody. It's time. Season 3. We made it here. Thanks for coming along on this, journey of mine. And I have such amazing guests. I'm overwhelmed. I'm so happy that people are really responding to this podcast well. So this episode, Season 3, Episode 1, with Jamie Colleen Miller. I'm like so wrapped up in like the emotions from this episode, and like doing all the editing, and I just have to say before we get started, trigger warning. We're talking about some serious issues. So domestic violence, abuse, trauma, things like that. Things that I've shared with you before, but Jamie's going to share her story as well. And things that I haven't shared with you before. But I just want to preface that this is an adult show. So just know that there's some hard topics that we talk about, but I'm so grateful for it. It's been just to say to Jamie, like this has been a healing experience, just to kind of be connected with you and to watch your growth, and I see myself in you, and I would have loved that for my life trajectory to have resulted in me competing, me being a professional fighter. But and maybe there's space for something like that. There's some space for competition, but I've overcome quite a bit, and I feel stronger and more grounded to know someone like you. So thank you for coming on my show. Thank you for being who you are. Thank you for everything that you do for the community and for the world. And you're so much an inspiration. And I'm so thrilled to present this episode to all of you. So without further ado, episode 1, season 3, Jamie Colleen Miller. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, everybody. It's Anura Mathis, your host of Freedom to Fight. I am floored that I have this amazing guest that I'm such a fan of, and that you're willing to come on my show of all places. But I will let you introduce yourself.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm really just excited to have a conversation with you today. And you've been amazing. So my name is Jamie Colleen Miller. Most people know me as Jamie Colleen, or in the fight world, Bad Mama. And I'm a former MMA fighter.
I am so happy to talk to you. I've been thinking about every single day. I've been thinking about this since you reached out to me, or since I connected with you. A mutual friend of ours, Dante, on BJJ Wiki and Off the Mats podcast.
Yes.
So I think he liked a little reel of yours, and that's how I was introduced to you. But you were talking about domestic violence and just the hits, some of your life, and it was so inspirational. I was in tears. I just started sending this to everybody, and I was like, I have to talk to her. And I'm so grateful that I'm connected with you now. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, and likewise. And I'm really, I don't oftentimes like to say I'm like happy. Like some of the things I talk about, because they're such hard things, I don't want to say I'm happy it resonated with you, but I'm glad like you felt something and that it had impact on you, and that it led to this connection. So I'm grateful for it too.
Yeah, me too. I watched your documentary. I just every time you're so inspirational. And so I just was moved to tears watching that. And it's just so close to home for me. I've experienced a lot of domestic violence and abuse and trauma throughout my life. That's why I became a trauma therapist, because I know it's something that you can overcome. But even more so, it helps you to evolve, to overcome adversity. I think it's a natural part of our lives to experience adversity, but women, and then people of color as well, we have a whole different set of adversity to overcome. And I'd love to talk to you more about your martial arts journey, I guess, first, and then kind of your personal life as well, whatever you'd like to share.
I'm an open book.
So how did you get started in martial arts?
I was an athlete pretty much my entire life. I was a high level competitive gymnast for most of my childhood, and then played sports all through middle school, high school. And then after that, I didn't really have much of a direction. I didn't have a ton of guidance in my life, especially as I got older. And I just, one day went to a friend's martial arts class. He was teaching like a kickboxing class, and I went out of moral support. I didn't really know that it was something that I never thought about it before. I didn't even know I had an interest in it. And then I just never stopped training after that first class. And I realized it was like, this is what I needed for many reasons, but it just yeah, I'm like, this is what I'm doing. And I just became really determined. And this was back when like, um, you know, Gina Carano and I think Chris Cyborg were like fighting on Strike Force. And so there really wasn't a lot of, space for women in MMA. It was just kind of like the beginning for women. So at the time I had started off as a boxer, a kickboxer, and just transitioned over time.
Is there any martial art in particular that you love more than another, or what do you like to practice?
I mean, I'm a striker. Like I've always, I feel like, yeah, I love striking, but then I'm like, I get on the mat and train jujitsu, and I'm like, I love this, and I find that like I'm pretty well rounded. But I mean, I guess because I started in like boxing and kickboxing, Muay Thai, that like it's my first love, so I feel that like, attachment to it. So I don't know. I love all of it. It's really hard to it's hard to say.
Yeah, that's how I got introduced to Muay Thai. I took a women's self-defense class, and yeah, that's what we're training in. It was Muay
Yeah.
Thai.
Awesome.
But I love kicking. I love
Yeah.
kicking people.
Yes, no.
Yeah.
I swear
And you,
it's the biggest outlet. Do you know what I mean? Like it's such
yeah.
an interesting way to channel just all the things, and you feel just so confident and empowered after. So I just, yeah, one of the many reasons why I love what I do. So
I did an interview yesterday on a podcast, and I have been questioned, a few times about my martial arts journey, but like I'm not I'm not a representative. Like I'm a white belt in BJJ. Like I'm at the beginning of my training.
yeah, but you're
And
representing it for the people who aren't participating. So you still fall under that umbrella for sure.
it just was challenging. I'll say that. It was just challenging for me to kind of articulate what it feels like and how, like why I benefit from it, besides just saying that it's empowering. So, and you're a brown belt in
Yes.
jiu-jitsu, yeah,
Yes.
BJJ. Awesome. So is your intention to keep training to become a black belt, and like what are your plans in martial arts?
Well, I mean, now that I'm officially retired from MMA, from competition, I I mean that in itself has been a journey, and I'm sure we'll touch on that at some point. But
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu is, a lifelong commitment. Once you commit to it, then you want to see it through all the way. So of course the goal is to achieve my black belt. And then I feel like I hear this a lot. Once people get their black belt, then it's almost like, oh, well, I guess with any new belt, you feel like it's the beginning of something else. It's beginning of like that next phase. So I feel like, I mean, yeah, it never stops with jujitsu. So like I want to achieve that, and then I would like to just keep going until I can't go anymore, I guess. I mean, I don't really know. But I did, because I've had some injuries, I had to take some time off, and I'm kind of easing my way back in. And I've had the question of, competing in jiu-jitsu, doing some like super fights and stuff, but I don't think my body's going to hold up for that. So I sort of have to, I guess, reconfigure like how I'm approaching jiu-jitsu now, and just, kind of diving in more as like a lifelong practitioner versus like, that competition side of it. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's understandable. I was preparing for my first competition when I got injured. I had a really serious concussion, and I was hospitalized. Yeah, I know. And it's taken me a long time to get some consistency in training, but I'm there again. I'm finally moved and settled in a new area, and I'm touring gyms so that I can find the right right environment to be in.
That's important. To find the right place.
I didn't realize how important it was, but I also hear that a lot of people that train and compete, that oftentimes they get injured more in their training than actual competition, which is unfortunate. Like, but it is an important aspect to remember. Like, this is something that can happen. You gotta be careful.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about your professional career as a MMA fighter. I know some bits of MMA and the UFC, and I completely shut myself out to that until just a few years ago, because I didn't know what it was, and I just thought it was, I don't know what I thought it was, but now I'm in love with it and I'm learning. So I want to know everything about your career and start to finish.
I'll be here all day. Golly. So when I first began training, I was 19. I will be 39 this year on my birthday. So you do the math. I've been at it for a while. And, you know, like I said, start off as a boxer and kickboxer, had a few fights in both disciplines, and then transitioned to MMA once it was a little bit more mainstream. And at the time, so I'm originally from West Virginia. Over time, most of my family moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. So at this point, I had lived in South Carolina for a while. And that's where I found martial arts. And then from South Carolina, I moved to Cincinnati. And that was where I made that transition to MMA. And I did a lot of research, finding a gym, because I didn't know anybody in Cincinnati other than my family. So I didn't know, like, I feel like at some point once you're in the MMA community, it's easier to reach out to people like, oh, hey, is this like, when you don't really have that, I feel like it's important to really like dive in and do your homework, which I did, and ended up finding just like little schools called Vision MMA in Cincinnati, and just kind of went there, and that became my home. And I was teaching classes, and that's kind of how I paid my dues at the gym, and had my first amateur fight, my one and only amateur fight, believe it or not. After that fight, I became pregnant with my daughter, I think like a few months after that. And so obviously I put my career on hold, and that, being with her dad just was not a good situation for me. And so I was just kind of put, not only my career because of obviously like my pregnancy and different things, but just in general, put my life, myself on hold in that relationship, and really lost myself in that. But over time, we ended up moving to Philly. He got a job offer, so we came here, and let's see, my daughter was born 2010, and then I went pro. I had my first pro fight in 2012. So I only had one amateur fight, then went pro after that. Which is, you won't see that today. There's like a lot more like regulations and rules and regulations regarding that. But, at the time, I think they were just judging off of, obviously my experience. Plus, it was really hard for me to get fights. So we figured at the pro level it would just be hopefully a little easier, which it was. So, won my first pro fight. And then after that, due to my just life circumstances, I put my career on hold for quite a few years. And then once I was out of that relationship, I was still 1-0, had been training for not that long before I got the call from King of the Cage to fight for a title on short notice. And I said yes because at the time I'm like I had been training like a mad woman. I was already training for another promotion for a tournament in Brazil, but they kept like, I don't know what's happening. Like things kept changing and it kept getting pushed back. And I'm like, I can't keep like cutting weight and like being in like fight mode, like training camp mode for indefinitely. So it was finally, I don't know, I guess it's just the universe conspired and we got the call, and I said yes and went out there to fight this girl who was a top 5 prospect in California. She was well on her way to the UFC, and they basically just like brought me in to lose. And and you know what? I kind of felt I kind of liked that and used that as motivation. And to me, I felt like I was my own secret weapon. Like it felt like, haha, I'm gonna show you. Like, because I knew exactly what I was capable of, and I knew why I was there. And I knocked her out in the fourth, took the belt home, and yeah, it was pretty cool. Kind of like on a rampage. I was like, you know, knocking everybody out, getting, you know, winning fights, and then I ended up sustaining some injuries, which you know, mentally it was hard to overcome, more so mentally. And I like kind of had a little mini losing streak, and then I got the call after my first knee surgery, 6 months post-op, the Fight on Contender Series. And I said yes because I didn't want to pass up the opportunity, even though at the time, like, you don't think this way. I think fighters just think like, if I don't take this right now, like it's going to be gone forever. I'll never get the opportunity to fight. But it's kind of like, if you're on their radar, you're on their radar. And if you're you know, recovering from a surgery, like you'll get that opportunity again. But I didn't see it that way. I'm like, oh, I got to do this. Like, you know, I have to show them. And I was nowhere. I had no business stepping in the ring 6 months post-op. I couldn't even, sometimes I was training on one leg because my knee would be so sore.
Oh, wow.
And I would just, it was so stupid. So if anybody's listening, just don't do that. Body heal, recover, and make sure you're ready, because I didn't even ask my doctor. I went and did it, and injured my knee.
Yeah.
First, even if you go back and listen to the watch the fight and listen, you can hear me actually scream. And at the time, like when I got re-injured, at the time, I thought the ref was going to take that as a verbal submission. And so I was just kind of like shelled up, because it was like I made it to the ground. Like she took me down, but when she took me down, she had my injured leg posted out. She put all her weight on my knee, and it just buckled and went right through. And I was like, oh my God. And then once I realized he wasn't going to stop the fight, like, then I had to really just start, you know, talking to myself, like having just that. I had a whole like dialogue. It was, if you can stand, you can get through this. I just kept telling myself, like, you can get through this. Like, if you're still, you know, if you can stand, you can fight, you can get through it. That's what I kept telling myself. So once I stood up though, and certain positions, like I wasn't able to block takedowns or stuff them. I wasn't able to explode forward. And then anytime I would move laterally, my knee would give out, and then she would just take me down at will, or oftentimes I would just fall. So if you watch it, nobody knew I had surgery, or that I was so fresh out of, you know, surgery. So I never talked about it. So anyway, the fight's going, and I'm thinking, like, trying to beat her standing. I'm like, okay, let me just get that one punch, and trying to get my punches off, and nothing was working. So finally on the last takedown, I'm like, oh, like, Jamie, you know jiu-jitsu, like, use your jiu-jitsu. And so that's what I did. And I won. I armbarred her in the last 20 seconds of the third. I would have lost if I didn't have that, like, that mental switch. I would have lost. And but that, like, really showed me something about myself, that if I can overcome that, and Like I just felt like I could do anything. It just really like set the tone for like that mentality moving forward. And so then I had a second fight on. Oh, so after that, I did take the time to recover. I didn't need another surgery, but it was partially torn again, my ACL.
Yeah.
So I took the time to heal and recover from that. And then I don't know. I think it was the following summer I fought again on Contender, and I fought Macy Barber, and I had like a weird, I don't know what happened. I just wasn't all there mentally. I ended up losing that fight because of that. I was my own worst enemy and just got really emotional in the fight. And yeah, I got the ref stoppage from a cut. I got cut from some elbows, and but it is what it is, a learning experience. And and from there I realized I had to really do the mental work, and I hired like a mindset coach and was really committed to that, and it was really helping me in all aspects of my life. And so and still does to this day. And from there, my next fight after that, I felt like I felt in that first fight coming back and winning the title. That was kind of my goal. I'm like, that's how I want to feel, but better. And that's exactly how I felt in that next fight. And so, so it was good, a lot of ups and downs. And then, had a couple of tough losses after that. And then another knee surgery a couple of years following. And from there, my body just was never the same. And now here I was older. We don't really recover the same when we're older. And also I had felt that I missed my window for the UFC. And even though my coaches were like, no, like you're fine, you're still on the radar, they still want you, but they want to see you perform at your best. We need you at your healthiest, not fighting with like bum knees and injuries. They're like, they want to see you at your best. And I was never able to get there because the injuries kept happening. And so, but for myself, as it was coming toward the end, my most recent knee injury was, I'm sorry, let me backtrack. So my second surgery, not only did I completely blow out my ACL again, but I also tore my meniscus as well. So that's kind of like where my meniscus issues stemmed from. So fast forward to last year, actually around this time, I was getting ready for a fight, and my meniscus, everything was a perfect fight camp. I was cutting weight about a week before we had to leave. I do like a lot of cycling, stationary bike at the gym. Like I was doing that and my knee wasn't I didn't feel anything. But then the next day I woke up and I was in a lot of pain and I couldn't really walk and I couldn't figure out why. So my coaches were like, listen, you've put the work in, you've had a perfect camp. They're like, just rest and you'll be fine. They're like, just rest, see how you feel tomorrow, and we'll go from there. And I just never felt better. I kept getting worse. And so ultimately they pulled me from that fight. Then a couple months later, went and got stem cells from one of my sponsors, and just started that PT journey again, recovering. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I want to finish on a good note. I didn't want to finish on I didn't want to be like, oh, like my injuries or like, I didn't want to be that. I'm like, I want to just at least finish on a good note. And that's what I had on my mind. I wasn't thinking about getting well for like long-term or quality of life. It was like, I want to get better for like one thing in specific, which is fine. I think and that's totally fine. But for me, it should have been more of like, more about long-term. And I wasn't really taking into account like my health long-term, like, and then thinking like, if I blow my knee out again, if I completely blow out what meniscus I have left, like I'm screwed, like for life. And I wasn't thinking like that. I'm just like, I kind of got like greedy. And so I was on the back end of my PT and jumped into light sparring one day, and I had I communicated with my training partner listen, my knee's still not 100%. I even have a knee brace on. So it's like, you can't miss it. Like big ass, like metal, like post-surgery brace. And I'm like, I'm not kicking. Like, do you mind just working hands? And then I think it was just reaction. He ended up kicking me right on my poor knee. And
Sorry.
terrible. So that ended up being like, all right, you can't be so stubborn, and you need to listen to what the universe is telling you, because I find that like the universe will tell us a lot of things, and over time, and it's like each time you don't listen, it has to like, it's like, how much more is it going to take before I finally listen? And so for me, that was that point of like, all right, I need to just be smart. Retiring doesn't mean I have to give up martial arts completely. It doesn't mean that I'm no longer a martial artist, although I did struggle with that because, to be honest, I didn't realize how much I identified as like a fighter. I mean, I felt like now I understand that pain of what fighters go through when they retire. Is like, that's, I've been doing this, for 20 years. And I'm like thinking, it's just something I do and I enjoy it and I love it. And I'm just like, when it was like done, I was like, I completely lost myself. I had no idea who I was for a long time. And that sort of, I was pushed into depression and, a lot of, it was really hard for a while. And then you just kind of, you can't live in that. Do you know what I mean? You have to, give yourself some grace, obviously, and be gentle with yourself in those times. But I also believe that you have to just be like, all right, like, what are you going to do about it? Like, you have to do something. You can't just sit and be sad forever. So, just was, even though like I said before, I was on the back end of my PT, then got injured again. And then that sent me back to day one. And so though it was like another like 6 to 8 weeks doing more PT and just like really taking my time with it, and then easing back onto the mat and just being able to train again. And that was really the goal, is like, I just want to be able to train. Like, I don't have to compete. I just want to be there and be part of this life. And because I get so much out of it. So yeah, that was kind of like, start to finish. And I mean, I'm still like, I find that I am still processing. I'm still trying to like manage all of these emotions and thoughts around retiring, but I'm also involved in a lot of other things. So I don't have too much time to sit around and think about it and like let my thoughts go wild. But yeah, it's definitely hard. I think a lot of times people don't understand when a fighter, has to retire. Like, it's painful. It's painful. So especially when it's not your choice.
Yeah. I thank you so much for sharing all of the details of your career and your injuries. And I mean, I really don't have a ton of experience in martial arts, but I can say I can relate to like being forced to not train. And I was training a lot. I was training like 3 to 4 hours a day most days. Like, I just was obsessed with it, and created a show to talk to people about it. So when I got my concussion, there's certain protocol, there's certain things that you are supposed to avoid, and you're supposed to avoid screens because it's super stimulating. And I wanted to, talk to people about what was happening to me, and I couldn't train. And on top of that, like, I don't have like a good story. I don't have like a cheerful story in any way. Like, it was the injury, and then also a breaking up of that whole community I was a part of, because I got injured by one of my coaches, and it just did not seem, at the time and reflecting, it didn't seem like an accident. It didn't seem like they were really making sure that I was safe in that environment. So it was just, my life exploded. So I can relate to to some of your experiences, not being able to train and not being able to connect with those people that I love so much. And I just, it still takes some time. I mean, had to go through a lot of therapy just to kind of reduce those triggers. So, I think I can relate to you.
Yeah, I'm sorry that happened. And I can't imagine being part of a gym or a team, you know, and I feel like as a training partner, there's a level of responsibility and accountability that we have to have, especially, with our training partners, and, to keep each other safe, to train smart, to look out for each other. But don't get me wrong, like, right, we have those moments where, like, we really push each other hard, and it's like, but there's an understanding there. There's like an unsaid, like this unspoken, like, understanding that makes the connection deeper sometimes, like with your training partners and stuff. And I can't imagine ever feeling like, I don't know what that feels like. That would be, I think, something really hard to accept if I was in a gym or an environment where, like, they would purposely hurt me, or I don't know, where I would, like, feel unsafe, or I don't know. I'm sorry that happened to you.
I appreciate it. It feels like a betrayal, honestly, because I went into self-defense classes and later realized it was mixed martial arts. That I went into that environment to heal trauma. So I was already very traumatized. I lost a ton of people in my family, including my mom, which was unexpected. It wasn't like it wasn't like, I'm expecting this. Let's go say our last goodbyes. It was just, no, here's the phone call. And so I was alone. I was just in a completely different state. I'm in Colorado now. I'm from Texas. And so I needed to find another community that I could trust. So that betrayal still breaks my heart. It's still, and I feel like I know that where it was coming from. It was coming from jealousy, because I was getting promoted. I was working so hard, and people were recognizing that, and I was getting more stripes and, t-shirts or what have you for Muay Thai. And I just, some people didn't like that. And the important lesson that I learned in all of that is, I can't just let my guard down because I want people to be a certain way. Like, I can't just see the good in everybody and not see the truth. I have to see all of it. And that's how I've gotten into abusive relationships and abusive friendships, because I want to see the best in people. But that's a disservice to everyone.
It totally is. And something I talk about so much now is, even with my friends, when they're like, with, dating and relationships, and I'm like, you know what? It's okay to be yourself. Because I have, like, some of my guy friends, they're like, well, I'm not going to change who I am. Like, I'm a good guy. Because, like, sometimes they are a little too good too fast, and that's not received well by the women that they are pursuing. And yeah, I'm not going to change. Like, I'm a good person. It's like, yeah, you can be a good person, like, to the right people. Like, you don't have to, like, give so much of yourself in the beginning. Like, give it time and make sure that they're worthy of that part of you. So that's something that I'm still working on too, because I find myself, and it's a daily, like, you really have to be attuned to yourself and, like, really self-aware to notice that you're doing it, because I feel like it's such, like, a natural thing that we do, right? So when something feels normal and natural, like, you're not going to automatically be like, oh, well, this is wrong. But yeah, it's just constant self-improvement. That's all it is. But
Yeah.
I just, that's what I tell them. Like, if you gotta, don't get too much of yourself too soon. Like, you can't just see the good in everything, but, like, see the good, but not, like, not
Only see that.
Yeah, not at the detriment of everything else where you're, like, ignoring stuff. So yeah,
There's good and bad in everybody, and maybe those are the best words to use because they're overgeneralized, but allow people to be themselves.
Mhm.
And, I'm sure I've experienced jealousy at some, maybe not exactly like that, but at some point in my life, I've been jealous of people. I haven't acted
Yeah.
out like that and
Mhm.
put somebody's life in danger, but
Mhm.
I have found some healing in that, and I can extend some compassion and know that that was just a part of my life. It's not my whole
Mhm.
life. I can move on from
Yeah.
that, but it's still
It
painful. Yeah.
hurts. Yeah. It still
Yeah.
hurts.
So, so now you are providing like personal training, or are you doing private
Yeah.
lessons?
Private lessons and small group self-defense classes for women in my neighborhood.
That's so
Mhm.
amazing. I wish you lived nearby me, or maybe
Oh,
I could
yeah,
come visit
no.
you at some point.
Anytime, please. Yeah. But it's great. I mean, it's something that, to be honest with you, working, I guess, I don't consider myself like a personal trainer. I'm just a boxing instructor and I know I can teach self-defense. And so, but it's easier to just say I'm a personal trainer. So anyway, that's been like something I've been working on and off for many, many years. I was never really able to fully commit to it because I was just on my fighting journey. And so now that I'm kind of done, I'm not kind of, see, I'm trying to like make it sound okay for myself by saying I'm kind of done. Like, no, I'm done. And now that I'm done, I'm teaching, training. I do speaking engagements, and I'm really diving into my advocacy work with the nonprofit that I work
I'm so excited to talk to you about
with.
this part too. I mean, I love every part. I don't feel like um martial arts will be a part of my life for the rest of my life, whether it's me
Mhm.
talking about it or training in it or both. But
Mhm.
um, helping people is my most natural ability or inclination, and
Mhm.
that's really what drew me to you. Your
Yeah.
your amazing story and what you're doing for the community, and I want to know all of the projects that you're doing and how you got involved in
Oh, wow. Pretty hard
that.
getting in. I think like you, I've, used my experiences to um to do this work, the work that I'm doing. So I guess, gosh, I almost feel like it would be like, to tell my whole story, my journey getting here would be like a whole another episode, maybe part two. I don't know, but
Hey.
um, so basically, I survived a 6.5 year long abusive relationship and endured pretty much every kind of abuse you can think of, and that ultimately led my daughter and I escaping, and we were homeless, and then finally received. Well, I didn't know, I wasn't aware of resources at the time. It was just it was really critical situation, and I was just reacting to what was happening, and like I said, unaware of resources. And so, but once I was out and you know trying to find help through resources, this was when I learned about Women Against Abuse, which is a domestic violence service provider or a nonprofit. The one of the largest in, well, we are the largest in Pennsylvania, and we offer um, pre-legal services. We operate to emergency safe havens. And so I actually ended up in one of their safe havens
Yeah.
and lived there for 4 months, and was really able to rebuild my life. And I always knew I wanted to give back, because when I was still living in the safe haven, I that was when I started training. And that's when I was like, actually, a friend of mine had reached out. And mind you, like, I didn't, only like my family knew that I was in a shelter. Nobody else knew. I was like completely alone, because also, too, in my relationship, I was extremely isolated. So I didn't really have those friendships or people I could call on and like get help from. So nobody knew. But then it's like you kind of start reconnecting with people. So at the time, one of my friends had said, why don't you just start training again? I think it'd be really great for you. It would help you a lot, especially if you still want to fight. You really should just like jump back into the gym. And so I did, and I actually joined a new gym. It was a Gracie school, Daniel Gracie gym,
Oh,
Hinto Gracie Philly, and went there, trained, and then I was kind of like showing out and like, because I wanted him to see me. I wanted him to notice me and to like, and he did. He was like, have you thought about fighting? Do you want to fight? And I'm like, I was like, yes, I do. I would like to fight. And then we had like this really like heart to heart conversation. He knew of like, because my ex was also a very well known fighter at the time. They knew about him. They knew we had split up, but they weren't aware of my situation, how I was living, and like what I was also like overcoming outside the gym. But we had a heart to heart, and he's like, listen, if this is what you want to do, you really have to be all in and commit. And that's exactly what I did. And that really just changed, that everything changed for me after that conversation, because when training for me, it gave me accountability, it gave me purpose, it gave me like, it woke me up every day. It's like I can't lay in bed and cry like, oh, I have to go train, because I looked at it too as like I had a responsibility to show up for my teammates and be a good teammate and be on the mats with them. And so I was kind of looking at it that way too. And I just had this like crazy feeling of like belonging, and I felt accepted in this environment and respected and just loved and supported. So I'm like, all these things I was getting, I had a thought one day, still at the shelter. I was talking to my mom on the phone. I said, you know what? I was like, why isn't there like a self-defense program, or why isn't there, because actually at the shelter at the time, they had one day designated for like, I guess, exercise, or it was like fitness, but it was like a Zumba class, but it was like through like a VHS tape, and like nobody ever did it. It was like, okay, but it was like, I was like, wow, like that could totally be, that slot could be filled with something more productive and something that's fun that the ladies can actually like feel connected to and engage in. And so I had said this to my mom. I was like, oh, maybe I could do like a self-defense program here. She's like, well, you need to like get out of there first. Like you need to heal and like take care of yourself first before you even think about pouring into others. And I'm like, all right, fine. So like, but it was always like something on my mind that I'm like, all right, I really want to, a part of me almost felt guilty because I was getting all these things out of training, and it was helping me in every aspect of my recovery from abuse and getting through all the court hearings, how I was, I guess I went from being scared of my ex to, I mean, I guess I was never really not afraid of him, but I think it helped me more to feel confident. And once I started building on my self-esteem and just carrying myself different, I was really able to push through and just really tackle each task each day. And I was like, there's just really, I felt like something to that and life-changing really. And so as time went on and I transitioned out of the shelter, I brought the idea back to them, and it was about 2 years later, because my mom was right, take care of yourself. And I'm really happy I did. And brought the idea back to Women Against Abuse, and they were very interested. So we had the meeting and they agreed to it. So I went back to the same shelter where my daughter and I lived, and I taught self-defense and kind of, it just really kind of depended on the women, but it was designed to be self-defense and like fitness, kind of like circuit training. And sometimes I would have a hard time understanding how I should approach going back to the shelter and teaching this class, because I didn't want the women there to feel like I felt like superior to them in any way, or like, I just really wanted to be gentle and careful and to let them know like that I'm just there for them, to support them and to teach them. And sometimes they would want to train. And then other times, like sometimes nobody would show up at all. And then other times I would have like, 15 people in one room, and it would just be amazing. And then, I forgot to mention that I did have a partner in this, and she's still my best friend to this day. She had, sorry, I had like my brain left me for a second.
That's okay.
She was kind of like taking care of the kids. So those who were mothers could just, their kids would go with my friend, and my daughter would also help on that sometimes if she felt like coming. And they would just have activities for the kids and like games set up for them so that the moms could just really do this with self-care and without any distractions, and just, like be themselves, like who they are. And so that was really impactful, and it was, a really awesome experience to go back to, that same place where we were, and to be able to teach the women there. And yeah, I loved it, but that was just still always something on my heart that I wanted to continue on, whether it was volunteering, whether it was, I didn't know what it looked like yet, but something in me after that first taste of giving back and understanding what it means to other people to have someone who understands what they're going through, and to see that you can go on and still live like a fulfilled life. You can still go on and, pursue your dreams, and even, achieve whatever you want. And so that meant a lot to me. And like, I just felt really grateful to share those spaces with, the women, and to, building this amazing relationship with Women Against Abuse. And so from there, they began inviting me for speaking engagements. The first time I shared my story was with 17 magazine, through this really through an article about domestic abuse and for younger people. So it was actually an anonymous article, and it had to be written in a way to where it didn't it had to be written. I remember it had to be written a certain way, like for, I guess, a teenage reader, right? Which was cool. And so even though it wasn't like my name and like my real name, I had to like use a fake name. And Women Against Abuse always does a good job at this with like confidentiality and keeping people safe. And so that was always like a big thing for them. But once I got a taste of that, sharing my story was like something in me like really changed. Like I started understanding the gravity of what I went through and being able to overcome that kind of all on my own. I mean, yes, I had the support of Women Against Abuse, and then later on from my team, who still didn't know, by the way, that I was in a shelter until I'll touch on that in a minute. But all my family was still in Ohio, in Cincinnati, and it was just always been my daughter and I up here. So I was able to overcome all of that like by myself, and then I really started thinking about what that means and how powerful that is. And so I really started leaning into my story and, accepting more and more of who I was, and just really able to just redefine myself through that, and just finding like my worth. And it's really hard to, when you like get through like an abusive situation, it's hard to allow yourself to, it's hard. Like sometimes you feel like you don't deserve anything good. It's hard to start accepting those things. And so that was a lot of work for me. But through that, I just, they started, Women Against Abuse began inviting me also to Harrisburg, to our state capital, where I was kind of like the face of the program, the face of, their organization as a survivor representative, and began sharing my story with, legislators, our elected officials, and state senators, and everybody was always so moved by my story. And even though I knew the impact of it, I don't think I still really knew. But I was like, with each phase of this journey, I was gaining momentum. Like the better I felt, the more good I did. And so anytime they would ask me to do events with them, anything, I was yes. Everything was always yes. And until ultimately I was invited to speak at at their board meetings. I was invited to speak on at their press conferences, like the largest of the year during Domestic Violence Awareness Month, to share my story there. And I didn't know this. And please, like, some people might be like, are you freaking kidding me? And I can't believe I'm saying this. But when I spoke at our I Pledge campaign, which is the press conference I was just talking about, Cheryl Lee Ralph was there because her husband is Senator Hughes. I didn't know that he was like, maybe I just didn't process it like in enough time. I don't know, but I didn't realize she was who she was, and she's there like watching me, listening to me, comes up to me after, like shakes my hand. And she even knew the brand of my jumpsuit I was wearing and was like, oh, I love that. Blah, blah. And I still didn't register who she was. And I'm like, I should have done this or said that. But it was just, we have pictures, and it was a really cool experience. But through that, I advocated for new legislation with, one of our state senators, and I just really started to like evolve and like really find myself through advocacy. And I loved every second of it, and being able to just also like mentor survivors. My Instagram then began kind of like, I feel like it evolved into like being a hub for people that they reach out to me now. Ask me questions. I help people navigate the family court system. And that's another area that I'm kind of moving into now, is advocating for policy change within the family court system. And because it's so dated now, like that just,
Yeah.
And I will say that was something else that the family court system failed my daughter and I miserably. That might be a story for another time.
This is I'm sorry. I'm just like, I'm in awe of you.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I really am. I mean, it's I'm like holding back tears this whole time since we started. I just of course I'm gonna start crying once I say but that it's just, your life is just so beautiful. You know, that's what you should do if you can. Goodness.
I believe in, nobody has to do anything, right? You don't have to share your story. You don't have to give back. But what that does for you, I forget who said it, but they said it's the most selfish thing that you can do is to serve and give back, because of the feeling that we receive from it. And then it just becomes addictive. But of course we care. Of course we do this work because we love and we care. But yeah, man, like I said, the more good I was, like the more I was doing, the better I felt, which then calls me to want to continue to do more, right? It was kind of like, I don't know, because I felt like, it's like, oh, well, I was able to change that just from sharing my story, or like, oh, wow, like now they're doing this differently because I was able to help them, like, change their perspective, or like things were changing for other people through my story. And so, it's been, it's been 10 years since I escaped. I've been an advocate now for 8 years. And I feel like I'm just getting started, and through my advocacy work, I've been able to connect with people outside of, our field, and where I've done other speaking engagements and other things in the community. I do a lot of advocacy work for public safety in my neighborhood as well. And I'm partnered with our local law enforcement So that's actually a newer thing I'm working on. And I'm also working on a new initiative. So a few years ago, I would say post or pre-COVID, so it was like 2019, I had this beautiful idea to create this self-defense program that was more rooted in the education of self-defense, not necessarily like the physical aspect of it, but that I would also offer, coupled with my like core program. And, then COVID hit. And then once things started opening up again, it was just hard. You know how it was, like easing people back into any idea of having like human contact. Like it was really hard. So this was just something that never left me. It was just, it was just always on my mind, this program that I created. And I'm like, well, I don't even know now. So anyway, it was called the Power Foundation, and I was going to work eventually to make it a nonprofit. And I don't know, I just, the wrong people were involved at the time. And then I just kind of laid it to rest. Just putting it on the back burner, never like really giving it up. And then, fast forward to this year. Oh, sorry, somewhere in between all of it. I got a call from Women Against Abuse on a Saturday morning, and I'm like, why are they calling me on a Saturday? Like, it's kind of odd. So I answer, of course, because I'm like, I was worried something was wrong. And it was from one of our board members, and she was explaining to me that they recently had a meeting and they basically voted me. My name got put in to be voted on to join the board. And she was like, that's a pretty incredible accomplishment. I just wanted to call you personally to congratulate you. But she was like, and they've been in operation for almost 40 years. And I am the first former client to ever be considered for the board. And then I was ultimately voted in. And so that's been like that. I was floored when that happened because, being in this line of work, we don't do it for recognition. We don't do it for really anything other than, the benefit of other people. And so it was hard for me. I don't know why it was so hard to accept, but it meant a lot to me that they, acknowledged it and wanted my input. They wanted me in that space with them, and that felt amazing. So, with that, moving forward, and our partnership has been so incredible, and they've always supported me in like every endeavor, and like, how can we, what can we do? How can we be involved? And so I've in the more recent months, I have, because like I said, I wanted to be more involved in kind of more on like the policy and reform side of things, to try to get my foot in the door at the family court and, start banging on doors. I just kind of one day, actually, a friend of mine was being honored by the city for his work that he's doing in the community. So I went out of support for him.
Sorry. I couldn't hold that in. Sorry.
Are you okay?
I'm okay.
And so it was at a city council meeting. So I went to support him, and it was early on in the meeting. But I realized, after he spoke, I learned how like council meetings worked, and there was like a lot of other things and issues happening in that room that day, and a lot of public comments happening and people speaking on certain issues. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there were like so many organizations and people, including our, other elected officials that I didn't know, who I felt like we should be connected to and partnered with our organization. Because I'm like, I feel like being in this room allows me to reach so many more people that aren't aware of our services, who could benefit from them or just benefit from a partnership. And so that was something I kind of started to do on a side to see if that's something I could grow. And ultimately I was able to, and it's something I I was doing on a weekly basis for a few months. I've been like, obviously my plate's pretty full right now, so I haven't been able to do that work as of now. But I realized that was such a game changer, like just for like, as far as even being an advocate. I feel like every advocate or anybody who wants to reach more people, to create partnerships and to, create impact and change, like that's one of the best places to be. And then once you're there enough, they recognize you're a familiar face, and then you start seeing yourself in spaces with, with our council members, and then they become interested in you, and then they want to hear your story, and then they connect you to like, all these other people. So it's been awesome so far. So anyway, I ended up I was speaking at a homeless forum for the Office of Homelessness in Philly, which interestingly enough, I used their services back when I was trying to find shelter for my daughter, and I ended up at the Office of Homeless. And I just felt like that was really like a good feeling to be there and to know that like, wow, I needed that. So anyway, I was speaking there, and then met somebody after who came to speak to me, like just wanted to introduce herself, and she's now my business partner. We began discussing what we felt like survivors needed more of in Philly, those who have survived abuse, and thinking on, okay, well, there's, women's support groups, there's like this or that. And then I almost feel like there's really not enough structure in those groups, and that there's nothing wrong. It's therapeutic. It's cathartic for people to, talk about their stories, what's happened to them. And then you feel supported there. But I also feel like there should be more education. There should be more of like, okay, you're taking in all of this information and everybody else's problems, but it's like, how do you bring yourself down from that? Like, how do you, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like, do you know what I'm talking about? I don't know.
Take away or utilize the.
I feel like it's like, you're taking all these, sorry, my brain is not working properly.
You're fine.
But I feel like there's no point of kind of like recentering yourself, like before leaving that space. We felt like there should be a level of self-care after, where you can just kind of like, have a few minutes of like meditation, just kind of like bringing yourself back in, kind of so what I'm looking for, not
Alignment.
It's like a realignment kind of thing. But yeah, it'll come to me. And so anyway, so then we started thinking about all these things that could be beneficial to a women's support group. And then we're like, well, maybe we could work on like a women's like workshop, kind of like a one-off. And then, so now it's kind of turned into this whole safety and empowerment initiative for survivors in Philadelphia. And we're establishing a nonprofit now. So basically, we've just created this curriculum, and the idea is that we want to help survivors navigate life after abuse. Because I find that, I can only speak for myself, but I know that other people go through it as well. Once you are, once you make it out of that situation, once you've survived, once you've transitioned, I feel like there's like this, you kind of feel like you're trying to get your footing, but you also feel kind of lost, because there's really not a lot of resources to help women really find their worth and figure out who they need to be to move forward when they're still trying to process and they still feel attached to this, experience that they've had, that there's no one really helping them to navigate that. And so that's essentially, we're filling in that gray area. And right now we're in the process of bringing on more community partners, and we just signed a sponsorship and partnership with Target.
Yeah, I saw that.
Our workshops will be held at one of the hotels downtown, which is amazing. And they've offered like the space, and it's been great so far. And then obviously, Women Against Abuse, and we have like a shared food program that's going to, their goal is, what they do, I should say, sorry, is they help people with who struggle with food insecurity. And so being connected with them obviously is important, especially those who are just trying to get back on their feet and things like that. So we're looking for all of the things that a survivor might need in those beginning stages to rebuild their lives, like post-abuse. We're going to provide for them through our community partners as well, and then providing a safe space. And then, there's going to be room for open dialogue, but in a more structured way. We're going to have just some like empowerment exercises, and we'll have some self-defense classes added in there as well. And so there's just going to be all these things, and we really hope just to build a community and like a sisterhood of like-minded women who can just really support and cheer each other on, and just be part of something incredible. And we're really excited about that. So that's like the new thing I'm working on now. And I'm just really happy.
Amazing.
I'm just decided to like finally do it. But a lot of the things that I feel like I kind of got my feet wet in, like in the past, where I didn't really fully commit to, was because I was still on my fighting journey. And now that I'm not, it's, I feel like I'm just like this mad woman for like the world. I don't know, but I love it, and it's been awesome. So
it's really incredible because not especially women of color, like you're having to deal with so much to recover that it's almost impossible to be able to then give back. So it's really special that you're doing it. And I like I mentioned before, I've gone through a lot of abusive relationships, several different types of abuse, but not an abusive childhood as well. And so I found martial arts, really what motivated me was being in a physically abusive relationship. That was a new experience for me. That's not what I was expecting. And it was a lot of the conditioning, the grooming part of it, the love bombing, and that has promoted me. I was looking into narcissism before, but that's encouraged me a lot more to know all of the stages of that, and to teach that to my clients. And I need to bring that to my social media as well. But I wasn't defenseless in my physically abusive relationship, but I needed to never ever have that experience again. And it reminded me of what I saw growing up, because I grew up in an abusive I'm trying to beat around the bush, but I'll just say it. My parents should not have been together. There was an abusive relationship going on there. And all of the things that my mom did to try to get out of that relationship and ending back into that relationship over and over and over again. She didn't have the resources that you're now trying to provide. And I am so grateful to you that you are providing something to humanity. It's not, it's something that's needed, and it's inspiring me to be a part of that in some way, because that is the gap. Like, how do you find yourself when your identity was stripped? You were submitted. You were somebody's slave. You were made someone's object. And how do you find your value in the world after that? It's so really challenging.
And not to interrupt you, and it makes sense, why women do go back. And there's a lot of reasons why. And it takes women up to, I shouldn't say women, because abuse can happen all around. I just mean, women specifically, it takes them 7 times before they leave for good. And, with every situation being different, I just feel like, I feel like part of why somebody goes back is because they don't have that self-worth. They feel like me, like nobody who's going to love me after this. Like, I don't even love myself. Like, where do I find that? And it's almost easier to go back and try to like adjust your life to make, I know it sounds so crazy. I don't even know how to describe it. But this happened to me, like where I would not try to leave, but say I wanted to leave. And then like even saying you want to leave, you can't say that to somebody that's abusing you, that you want to leave. And then like when you try to leave, that's one of the more dangerous situations you're faced with. And ultimately, a lot of times people don't realize when you do leave, a lot of people, I mean, women are killed every day when they leave abusive relationships. And so I just feel like when we're able to fill that gray area and really helping women to dive in and to help them become who they need to be to move forward as like their true self and loving themselves, knowing their worth, and like you were saying, the value that they possess and that they can add to the world. Like, I mean, I want women to feel like they can, you know, go after their dreams, that they're worthy of going after their dreams or achieving that goal, getting that dream job. Like, if I didn't have martial arts, that's why I was like, I felt a little bit guilty sometimes because of everything I was receiving just from being in that environment, like taking away like the physical aspect of martial arts. I just like all of like the values, like everything that it was feeding me and fueling me with just like love and acceptance and support. Like then you like start carrying yourself in that way. You start mirroring your environment. You're a product of your environment. And so if I didn't have that, I know myself, I think I would have still like, I'm still me. I would have, you know, maybe found something else. I like getting into something else. But, you know, for me, it was, you know, martial arts and pursuing my goals and reigniting my passion for that. But it was like, man, if I don't know, like, I just know that like what I was getting from that, what that did for me. And I want everybody to feel that, like anybody who has like survived something, I think should have like all of those things to help them move forward. So I feel like I was really scattered and all over the board, but like my mind just fired.
No, you're
really
just like me.
And then so I'm sorry. You can just
No, I'm receiving everything that you're giving.
and we have a lot of similarities. Like I grew up the same way, and you know, unfortunately, I you know, that I wasn't able to break the cycle until obviously my situation, but I was in multiple abusive relationships until my ex, and then finally it's, you know, I broke the cycle after that. But yeah, it's tough. It's hard growing up in that environment and then growing up as an adult, and because we never really get a clear or healthy example of what a relationship, a healthy relationship looks like or feels like. And you just kind of start reaching or accepting things that you shouldn't to, you know, feel loved or accepted. And it's with the wrong people, you know, so because you don't feel worthy or like confident to, you know, be with someone that deserves you.
Yeah.
And then we don't feel deserving. So it's like, it's all this crazy.
The residual effects of it, are long lasting, and so a lot of people come to therapy when they're at that point. But it's like it's so hard to rewire your brain to to change your conditioning. But
really
I'm just like all of these thoughts are coming up because we're talking about this, and my ex was an alcoholic and like recovering. So there was a lot of like charming going on. Like it looked like he was getting better and that he was healthy and like a person that he just put on a show. But I also moved out of state, and so I was away from my family as well. So my family didn't know this was going on, but my family has their own, you know, dynamics that they have not worked through themselves. So it really wasn't that I had that support.
Yeah.
And he ended up breaking my hand, my dominant, my right hand. And so it was even challenging to consider leaving somebody, during that time. I'm having trouble driving and taking care of who was the person that was taking care of me? Him. So the person that was abusing me was the person taking care of me. And it just, I was so vulnerable. But yeah, going right into self-defense when it was time for me to do that, and striking and having power, on my right hand side, it was just everything that I needed. Went through tons of therapy, still will be doing that, but I just I'm so grateful that I was the one to choose, because it has to be your choice to choose to break the cycle. And I have still gotten involved in other, like there was an unhealthy dynamic between me and some of my coaches, at the gym. So that came right after my abusive relationship. So I've gone back into those dynamics before. I live in a very white community. Like I'm the only person of color that I see in my entire community.
Wow.
So feeling like I'm unworthy, and then people projecting onto me like, you don't deserve to live here, like, how did you get here? And all of my communities, and then all of the trauma I've experienced on top of that in those communities, survived a wildfire. Like, there's just been a ton of things that have happened around me in the past few years that it really has been on me to instill that self-worth and to overcome that. So
It's
everything.
It's all a testament of just how strong you are. That's incredible that you're able to still have that mindset to go forward and to be so, I don't know, you just still have this like sensitivity about you. You're not, I always think it's such a beautiful thing to see somebody who's gone through so much, and still do. We all still go through so much all the time, but if you're still able to be gentle and to show like compassion for other people, I think it really shows a lot of who you are.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm very connected to my spirituality, my spirit,
I can tell,
and I just, and I'm rebellious. So that's my rebellion, is to say, no, I'm not going to disrespect myself, and I'm not going to allow you to do that. I'm just as deserving as anybody here. I work my ass off, but I don't need to prove that to anybody. With all of those it's happening now. In a brand new community I moved to, people are giving me this stink eye, like, why are you here? Like, but that's them. I had to figure out where that was coming from. That's coming from their insecurity and parts of myself that are attracting those types of people near to me. Like, it doesn't mean that means there's something broken. It's just an opportunity for me to reinforce that. Like, you're over here, I'm over here. I can send you some love, and be loving to myself, and just recognize that those things exist. Those things are always going to exist. I'm not going to solve racism. I'm not going to solve sexism, but I can solve it for myself and just say that I am worthy.
Exactly. And you are. And it's all about how we respond and react. And I just, so I feel like it's that simple, right?
Yeah.
How we react.
Well, I am going to ask you a couple of more questions, maybe.
Okay,
yeah. And then I'm going to let you ask me questions if you have any, no pressure whatsoever.
Okay.
But I just want to know what you would advise. You're fine. To anybody interested in martial arts or MMA, or just people that are just kind of blind to this whole world, like people that are maybe interested in joining a gym. what advice do you have for them?
I would, obviously the first thing would be to do your homework. Make sure that, you hopefully there's a place that exists around you that, practices healthy gym culture. You want to make sure that those who are running the gym and your coaches are like legitimate,
Mm-hmm.
people who are qualified to be teaching you, because we have a lot of, I don't even know the word I'm thinking of, like just fake people who
Yeah.
they'll buy their belts on Amazon and call themselves a black belt and just come up with these obnoxious, ridiculous stories about their journeys when really they just have no business teaching anybody anything. That if anything, they'll get somebody hurt. Yeah, I would just say to do your homework on the gym, like make sure when you go there that you feel comfortable. But I think walking to any situation, a gym can be very intimidating. So I would just, with that in mind, don't let that deter you, and, follow through. Just go try it. And, if you don't like it, then I don't know. Like, I just feel, just give it a go.
And I think what really helped me is that you can do a free trial. So like after my concussion, I toured a lot of gyms in different areas.
Wow.
And and there were ones that I just knew, like, this is
Mhm.
not the place for me. Like, use
Mhm.
your intuition. How do you
can
feel?
it.
How do
Yeah.
Mhm.
You can definitely feel it. So I've been fortunate enough to where I don't think I've been fortunate enough to not have to like deal with like the politics of that. I've been able to, I got lucky finding like my gyms and my home and my team.
I'm sure that was just another lesson for me. It was
Yeah.
just to
Oh, for sure.
attract it
Yeah.
in, go through that experience and take
Yeah.
from it. But I get to do things differently now.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Okay, Jamie. So my final question,
Yeah.
because my show is called Freedom to Fight.
Yes.
What does freedom mean to you?
Oh, I would say, I guess, gosh, to be free. All right, freedom. I feel it's just, when I think about freedom, I think about love. I think about just to be able to love, because I feel like when you truly love yourself and you're whole all on your own, that everything else is just, you leave more room and space to receive more love, to receive like the good that the world has to offer. And I'm not saying everything's good all the time, but I feel like when you're free to just be yourself and to love, it's a different way of living. I feel like you're just more positive, you're just more open to the world. Like I said, you're able to receive more when you love, and you're just free to be you, and to be yourself is such a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Such a great answer.
Yeah.
The energy of love. Stay in the
Yeah.
energy of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's freedom. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, I will allow you to ask any questions, but don't feel any pressure, because I've talked about myself enough.
I'm glad you did. I didn't realize we had so many similarities, and it makes sense that we feel like, I don't know, I feel a strong energy, like connection toward you, like even through the screen. But yeah, I just, I don't know. I think I learned a lot, but I'm curious. I can think for myself, assume why you call your podcast Freedom to Fight, but I want to hear like why you named it that, and what made you come up with the name.
Sure. I love the word freedom in general, but I think really just as a Black woman, like our freedom, is not, we're not free to do a lot of things. We're not free to, I always reference like my childhood and like my family dynamic and my communities there, like kind of discouraged aggression and violence and like acting out in that way. But that's also the case in just society, that you're an angry Black woman if you have a natural reaction to something that's disturbing. Like, I need freedom to operate. In my everyday life, like I cannot have the same structure that everybody else has, or perhaps the majority has. I have to have freedom over my schedule, freedom over how I think and just operate it, because all of that's been suppressed my whole life. But especially just expressing my anger, it's been suppressed. So freedom to fight is like freedom to actually train in martial arts and not feel guilty or feel shame that I'm doing something that other people love, that people fall in love with. Like I don't have to shame those people anymore either, because I was on that team. Like, no, don't ever look at the UFC. Like, no, it's amazing to look at these fights. Like, now, I used to never watch them, but now I'm like studying the fights and calling out the moves and shadow boxing when I'm like watching. I'm so into it because I get it now. That is freedom. And that's also love. It's loving to show up for your contender or for your sparring partner. It's loving to show up in every way that you can and give them a fight, because we're practicing on each other. We're developing each other. So, that's where the name comes from.
I love that. And I don't mean, I know I talked so much, but what you just said reminded me of this. It was a quote written by, like, I don't know, from like the ancient times, but like a really long time ago. I'll have to send it to you if I can find it. But it was like, why do we fight so hard? Or like, why fight? Something like that. It was, I cannot remember. I would never be able to remember the whole thing. It was a few short paragraphs long, but the part that always stayed with me was about how they talked about love and what it meant to the pride that the fighter had for his country or for his people, for his village. And that's why they fight. And then the love of fighting. So it was like they fought hard to preserve that, to preserve, like, we fight so hard because we want to preserve the love and preserve our pride for our people. Because I guess, the way they were described is that they fought not just for themselves, but for the love of their families and the love that, like you said, it's just love. The love for like so many things, right? The love for the good, the bad, the ups, the downs, all of it. And so, but that makes, like, to me, I don't know, it just always stuck with me. It was like, we fight hard to, just to preserve that. And I love that. I don't know.
That's beautiful. Yes, please send me that.
I'm definitely butchering it, but that was
the essence of it. Oh my gosh, I have so many more questions for you, but I know this is just our first one. I'm welcoming you back if you ever want to come back.
Oh, yay. I would love to come back anytime. Just say the word.
I would love to meet you as well in person if I could do that. So you'll be my first episode on season 1. Season 1. First episode on season 3. And
amazing.
Yeah. And my intention for this next season is to meet the guests that I've interviewed and to fight with them. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people will turn me down, but at least I don't know, making some videos, because I feel like that kind of reduces the it makes it like a little bit more familiar to my audience, like people that haven't ever tried martial arts, and specifically the martial arts that people use in MMA. Yeah. So I think that's where I want to go with that, and just do some traveling and stuff.
Yeah. Like, come to Philly.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. We'll be waiting for you.
We covered a lot. No, we covered a lot.
Yeah.
Range of emotions. Well,
Well, wait, I do have a question though.
okay.
Why did you choose where you are in Colorado? Was it just for your job, or was it some like?
I grew up in Texas, and I didn't. So I came to Colorado in 2016 to visit, and I like had never seen mountains before. Like I just had a very sheltered life. Yeah, and I just fell in love with the environment. Like I'm a very introverted person, and I connect with nature, and it just it was just clicked, just like martial arts. Like it just clicked. Like this is where I need to be. But how I was going on vacation to like mountain towns. Like I was going in areas where people are like nice to tourists and like accepting and welcoming, and you're just kind of out on your own. It's different when you live in a community of people, and you don't really know like what their values are. And I don't want to say that I haven't had good experiences here, but I've had a lot worse experiences than good, just as far as racism goes, because there's very few people of color, and they're all pushed into the poor areas. And just I do find myself very fortunate to be here, but also I'm balancing that with I deserve to be here. So to do my job, I'm a remote therapist, so I could be anywhere, but I find it it regenerates me to be able to see the mountains and to go for a hike, and just be connected. And it's hard to do that in Texas as well. Like a lot of people there. It's just busy cities, people just having their own agendas. Yeah, it's hot. It's gross. But even here, like living inside a city full of people, a lot of that's happening here too. So I just have to allow myself to take time out and go walk in the grass barefoot wherever I can, and reconnect myself. But I that's why I picked the place. Now reality is hitting, and I'll find the right place for me to be in.
You will. You definitely will. Yeah, Colorado's beautiful. I don't know where, and as far as like geographically where how far you are from Colorado Springs, but I did a speaking engagement there. A few years ago. Yeah, it was amazing. My first time ever like seeing mountains like that. It was
right. It's just it's breathtaking. Like there, because the mountain range in different parts of the state, you get different mountains, and so it's different climates. And I'm like an hour and a half, I think, from Colorado Springs. I think, maybe an hour from 45 minutes from Denver, something like. I'm pretty north, but well, thank you for your questions. Thank you for your time. I'm so honored to be connected with you, and
so much. Likewise.
I'll end it here. So
Perfect.
Thanks again.
Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And as always, I will put the contact info for my guest, Jamie, and for all my guests in the description, as well as how to contact me on Instagram and YouTube and email and all of that. I'll also include some of the national hotlines for domestic violence and some resources that you can, if you're in need of that, connect with. I'm also going to release some more videos about this episode, and I'll just kind of keep it general like that. But This is a big topic, and I think it's important for anybody in the martial arts community to be aware of domestic violence, but these dynamics and the signs to look out for, and how to, be an advocate for each other, and create a safe space for people to train and to get out their aggression without it resulting in abuse. So I think that martial arts really creates that type of community. That's why I'm a part of it, and it really avoids people becoming bullies. But it's not that it doesn't happen, and I think that we could also help contribute to having better environments and calling that kind of shit out. Don't let domestic violence doesn't just happen between men and women. There's several different dynamics, and to look out for it and to be trauma informed, to understand people's responses, people that have been through traumatic situations. So I just wanted to share a bit of that, and I'll publish some more videos around that. And I'm really grateful that you are all still here and growing and supporting me. And I'll put some more details in the description of how to support me, to make a donation if you'd like. And yeah, more episodes on the way. Thanks again. Bye.